welcome to the stage.
Thanks for having me.
And I promise I won't ask exactly the same questions as last time. So, Toby, with Pact Swap. For those who don't know Pact Swap, it's a cross-chain DEX. Without getting into attorney details, you're a very successful guy. Yeah. What made you decide to work on Pact Swap? You know, you could have done pretty much anything in the world. What really, I guess, made you decide to get up in the morning and go back to work and build Pact Swap rather than working on your other businesses?
Okay, we're going to have a moment of honesty, I suppose. You did say you were going to change this up. For some people that know or don't know, I've been at this game for a long time, vis-a-vis earning money. I started in my early 20s owning nightclubs in London. From saving up the money from nightclubs, I ended up building telecommunication networks. I built the entire voice structure in and out of Central Africa and the country of Chad over satellite. I did a lot in the security industries. And very much what I was doing was making money for the sake of making money, taking advantage of opportunities as they arose. I ended up getting into crypto at the end of 2017 because someone I was working with in telecoms was a deep thinker within blockchain. And I kind of got hooked. And all of a sudden, we thought, how can we actually make a change? How can we contribute towards a technology which is potentially a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where you can be part of real change, opposed to just taking advantage of opportunities to make money? And I thought that the amount of work that would go into doing this would be comparable to what I did before, and it wasn't. This ended up being a life-changing mission. It's not a job. And the whole point behind Pact Swap was that we do not believe that centralized parties such as sexes should control a decentralized space. That needs to change. And that was the motivation.
How do you think we ended up where we are? You know, with the advent of smart contracts, like 10 years ago, everything was supposed to be decentralized. What has been the biggest, I guess, obstacle preventing, decentralization from really taking hold in the way we've been hearing about?
Well, firstly, I don't want to be into conspiracy theories, but governments need to control the flow of fiat money in and out of digital assets. If there's no control with how fiat moves in and out, which directly conforms with what the market cap of the space is, then this is a runaway train for them. So whilst you have consecutive governments that were hostile towards digital assets, towards crypto, then they would put the pressure in that the only way to bring money in and out would have to come from licensed entities over which they had assemblies of control.
Is gatekeeping, effectively.
Exactly what it is. Now you are having governments that are becoming more friendly to it. You see Uniswap was tested with a Wells notice in January of this year, drop hands, no further action. So you're seeing decentralized players being given a lot more leeway at this moment in time to enable flows in and out of the space.
What technological hurdles, if any, remain? I saw a thread or a quote on X a couple weeks ago that the DeFi space has been built in secret over the past decade. And now that the winds have changed and now that things are a little more friendly, TradFi doesn't know what's coming. We have this advantage where we've been building and using the DeFi products, using the DeFi rails for the past decade now. TradFi doesn't know what's coming. They don't know that these things exist.
I think there are two parts to that. I think number one, there is some truth that there's a lot being built in secret due to regulatory concerns, but also there's a lot that's been built over the past 10 years that is very, very hard to build. And the fruits of that toil is now coming to the forefront. By way of example, if you want to move different assets between different chains that are incompatible, then today you're just gluing a blockchain in between two other blockchains. And there's a massive security risk to that. And you see that in hacks. You see that in a load of negative press. So a lot of what's being built takes time to build. If it's not proprietary, it's not a fork, another copy of something else. And so you might argue that this is perfect timing. You have the support of the regulatory bodies coming online from all around the world, and you have the fruits of that toil, where you have proprietary builds that are improving the current platforms that are out there.
So on that line, how does Pact Swap differ architecturally from the existing solutions right now? What sort of technical or architectural design elements did you all change from what already exists?
I'll try and keep this really high level so I baffle you in tech speak. At the moment, what you do is you have validator sets. Going back to the point of sticking a blockchain in between blockchains. The validators hold on and lock up collateral for a minimum term. In TORChain's case, $400 million and over 120 validators. There is a cost to the validators. There is a cost to the collateral that's locked up. What does that equal? On average, 2.5% fees moving from Bitcoin, native Bitcoin to native Ethereum on TORChain supported DEXs. We have replaced that architecture, replacing the validators with a cross-chain reactive smart contract framework. So they can collateralize smart contracts, and market makers on the bid side of a trade can now just post collateral on a per trade basis. The result is we are up to 95% cheaper than cross-chain DEXs supporting native BTC. We are up to 45% cheaper than single-chain DEXs such as Uniswap, and we are a comparable price to a newbie retail customer on Binance, with the marked change that we don't enforce KYC or AML. Let it sink in for a second.
So let me repeat back what I just heard. The existing architecture requires money to be locked up. Like you said, THORChain, 400 million. Am I understanding it correctly that if I want to swap Bitcoin to Ethereum, some sort of message goes out, and at that point, the market maker posts the liquidity for that trade kind of on demand. So it doesn't have to be tied up or locked up in any way for any time.
Absolutely correct.
How did you get there? That seems pretty daunting or pretty challenging, because cross-chain communication has kind of been this white whale in the industry.
I don't know how many people actually build technology here. Who are builders? Any builders? Okay, I got one. Okay, thanks, Hunter. I got another one. For the builders in the room, this will resonate. You start out on building the product or a protocol. You're halfway through. You identify an opportunity. You pivot into it. We ended up building a cross-chain reactive smart contract framework as the underlying protocol, and had absolutely no idea there was an application for a cross-chain DEX until we had shipped it. We were looking at use cases with people building on top of us, and we went, hang on a minute here. We've actually got something we can build ourselves on top of that protocol, and we pivoted into it.
I love how that unfolded. In some of our conversations over the past couple of weeks, you mentioned that there's a limited capacity right now as you're growing and as you're building. What's your plan over the next, 6 or 12 months to grow the capacity for swaps? And how can people get involved today if they want to start using it?
We have a very clear path. I want a minimum of $50 to $100 million a day worth of trade within the next 12 months. Bringing in liquidity where you can actually participate. So the platform will be live in about 6 weeks' time, so that you can actually become a retail market maker. And we've got a tiny little bit left of the round before we do TG before the end of the year. But that would be a private one, Omar.
When is the TG?
Before the end of the year, subject to the exchanges.
Amazing. Thank you, Toby. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks, Harvey.